so I'll just play this here. So I've been playing a lot with Cinema 4D lately and trying to do this kind of interesting MoGraph type animation. And to be honest, I'm not quite sure how I would do this in Cinema 4D. So I just sort of did it in Blender because I'm kind of just messing around with something and these pipelines between this and Spark right now. Actually, let me just ask, can you hear me okay? Give me a sign you can hear me okay. I don't know if this stuff is working. This is the first time I've tried to do this. Okay, give me a sign if you can't hear me okay. Give me any kind of sign. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, anyway, yes, you can hear me. Excellent. Good stuff. Okay, so basically I'm going to just take apart what I've kind of done here, because it's sort of an interesting little process. Basically, if you look at this, I've got a simple hierarchy. Blender is a little bit weird for setting up hierarchies. So basically, what I've got here is I've got a root node, which is basically kind of the parent of everything, and then these individual cubes have their own sort of little parent. And then there's I tried to actually put in a few different levels of basically pivot points to mess with stuff, but in the end I've actually just done the animation more or less on the same cube. But now you can't hear me. Crap. What's going on? That's weird. Okay, I'll wait for you. Well, I set this up. That is strange. I don't think I changed anything, so it must be something on your end. Okay, anyway, okay, that's weird. Okay, so basically what I've got here is I've got a bunch of different cubes, and they're really just duplicates of each other with a different offset. So if I go and, for example, just toast all these, and toasting stuff in Blender is a little bit weird. Like if I just hit delete here, it's gonna, yeah, I don't think it really deleted what I wanted. You want to actually delete the hierarchy, and so like all the stuff underneath, if you just hit delete, like you delete a parent, it doesn't actually delete it. I'm also in a weird view here, which in Blender you have you can have the sort of layer view, which is basically collections, which is sort of, I guess, like the outliner in Maya, which, to be honest, I don't really use. I tend to use the hypergraph more. But the scene view is a little bit more like a hypergraph type, actual outliner type view, where here I can see my root node and the proper hierarchy, and it's just sort of the way you would kind of expect to see it, or I would anyway. And so if I just want to sort of delete a bunch of this stuff here, I think I might be able to hit the Alt when I go delete hierarchy. Just see. Yeah, that worked. That's one of these weird secret keys in Blender, is you hit the Alt when you're trying to do stuff, and then it'll do it to like a selection rather than just the one, even though you have a bunch of stuff selected. It's really kind of weird that way. But basically what I've got here is this one animation, and there's a few things going on with it. So you'll notice that first of all it's kind of moving, so that's the sort of basic animation. And then the second thing that's going on is that I've got actually some blend shape animation on it. So I've just created a few different blend shapes here, which, well, they call them shape keys in Blender. I still use Maya terminology a lot. And basically what they are is they're just shapes, just modified versions of what's here, except I've actually got some sort of extruded the faces here. So if I kind of drag, let's see, can I do this? You know what, I've got it set up in a weird way right now. I'm going to delete this. Let's see if this works. Actually, you know what, let's just get those back. I've kind of got a few extra steps here, so let me just show you the way the blend things work. Actually, let's try this again. I'm going to delete the driver. So basically I've got some driven keys on here, again to use my terminology. And so these little cubey things here were basically driving the blend shapes. But if I just want to look at the blend shapes directly, then I can look at these, and you see them in the sort of object data little section here. And so I've got one that does these kind of, this corner, and then one that does this corner. So I'm sort of getting this kind of Hypercube Crossy type thing if I use both of them. I was sort of experimenting with the idea of sort of doing a hypercube and an animation around a hypercube. So this is, yeah, I tried to drag objects to the parents, but it didn't work like in my outliner. Yes, I know. Blender is a pain in the ass for that kind of thing. There probably is a way to do that, but I think what you need to do is create like actual parents. So if I like, have two things here and I want to parent them together. Yeah, you would think, okay, I can take this one and drag it on that. Actually, it did work. Look. You know what the problem probably is that you are in this view here, in the layer view, which is sort of the default. Let's try it here. Yeah, see, it doesn't work in here. So this is the one which is, like I was saying, is basically a sorted, I don't know, it's like a collections, and it doesn't have anything to do with hierarchies. It's just basically like collections, and it's sort of the default view. So if you want to get more of a hierarchy, you can switch up here to the scene view. And then it looks like that actually does work. If you drag, then you get a little bit of a thing there. So hey, I learned something. And then you should be able to pick this, and yeah, let's see, there's a parent and child relationship now. However, you would think that if you delete this, you would get both of them would die, right? Would be deleted. See, but that's where that doesn't work. If you delete the parent, it doesn't actually delete the entire hierarchy. Same thing if you're trying to like turn something off. Like if you turn off the parent, you would normally expect that, hey, the whole hierarchy is going to go, like, be invisible, right? But no, Blender doesn't do it that way for whatever reason. So you have to hold down the Shift key, and then it'll do the whole hierarchy. Which, it's a weird little workflow thing. Also, some of my keys are messed up. Hopefully you've discovered this, but if you haven't, the most important thing you want to do with Blender is change the interface. Yeah, Alt Snap View Rules. You want to change the interface to, is it navigation? Where the hell do you do it? You want to change it to industry standard. Yeah, industry compatible key map. Otherwise, it's like, I don't know, it's from some other planet. That way, at least the most important thing is the viewport controls are the same as like, standard Maya, Spark AR type things, right? Otherwise, it's just, I don't know. I can't deal with it. So yeah, so basically you can do your basic hierarchy type stuff here, except that you just have to be where you use Shift if you want to, use visibility, if you want to delete it, I usually do this right-click delete hierarchy, which will get rid of the whole thing, is because deleting just the one doesn't do it. I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway, so back to this. So I was trying to create this kind of weird hypercubey thing, and just basically created a few blend shapes. So you can see here that really what I've got is a cube, which is where I've gone and I've taken the faces and just basically done this kind of thing on them. Done an inset. Another cool little Blender tip, if you haven't figured this out yet, is when you do this, you don't really have a history, so to speak, but when you first do something, you get this little kind of dialog box that does allow you to change it as you're doing it. So in this case, I wanted all these to be the same, so I just put in like a 0.5 here, and then I was able to do it on the other side as well. There's probably some way more efficient way of doing this, but this is what I was doing. Just kind of went around and built my little thing. so that I could then go and do this kind of hypercubey thing. And again, when I move that, I can also say, you know, make sure it goes to exactly where I want. I could probably pick both of them, just see. Yeah, I think if I pick both of them, it's not going to work. Well, certainly because I guess I could try and move it based on normals. No, that's not going to work. It has to be local. Yeah, it's trying to take the average of the two normals, so I don't know. There's probably some crazy way. Yeah, see, local isn't going to work. Anyway, I'm just trying to be more efficient. Of course, I could always scale it, right? Do that. But then I'm changing the size of them. So, anyway, just little hints as I kind of go along here. I'm not sure if... I think these are actually the standard keys, but I use kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4 on my top number pad to sort of change between these object and edit modes here. And the edit modes being, again, if you've worked with Blender a little bit, you know this, but you know, your point or your vertex, edge, and face modes. So basically, I've got my little thing here, and the way you do shape keys here. Actually, let me just get this other one back again. So the way you do a shape key is when you pick the object itself, you've got your little side menus here, and this one is your basic transforms, which again you probably know, and this one is sort of more kind of sub-object information. And so to create a shape key here, you just basically actually do it at the object level. So at the object level, you create your object, and then you hit the shape key button, and the first one is sort of like your normal one, which you kind of want to leave alone. And then you add another one for what you want. So let's say I want to call this one Hypercube. And then basically, then I would go into my edit mode and kind of do what I'm going to do. Change that. And then if I go back to my object mode, now I should be able to switch to this one, and see there now I can do the slider thing to to kind of implement that shape key. And then you can just basically, like you see with this one, add as many as you want and kind of animate them. What I was kind of getting at here is sort of, I'm looking at the workflow to go specifically from here into Spark AR. And in Spark, you can't actually animate shape keys, but you can. It will recognize them. So, although this is a problem that I'm having right now that I need to solve, which is why I was starting to install that other thing. But let me just ask you, since you know you're kind of my primary viewer here, are there just go ahead and ask if you got any questions about Blender, something you want me to kind of run over. I can do that. In the meantime, I'll just kind of keep going with what I was doing here. So so to create this animation, what I've done is, and again these are sort of secondary to that, but you can see now how that's sort of set up. So I basically have each face is kind of on top of itself right now. So these blend shapes are actually, like, these faces are kind of, well, I guess they're not on top of each other. Yeah, well, these edges would be, these vertices would be on top of each other. But, and there's definitely going to be a lot of crashing that I'm going to deal with later. But for the most part, it's just changing the shape so I can kind of get this interesting animation going. So basically, what I've got is this one cube that has animation on it, and what I was trying to do is create this kind of interesting pattern by only changing the offset, basically having the same animation on a bunch of cubes and having it linked together. Can you delete history? There isn't really any history, no. So basically, there is no history. The only history that you've got on something is if you've got modifiers on it. So it's a little bit more like a 3D Studio Max type setup where you've got a list of modifiers that you might have that are doing deformations, those sort of things. But the actual history of, like, say, moving vertices or that sort of stuff is not, there's no stack for that. It's just basically, it's just there. So yeah, unfortunately, as far as I know, there's no way to do that. It's just basically done. But you may mean in a history in terms of, like, deleting the animation. Yeah, that's right. And this is the same way. So if you wanted to do, like, a bunch of modifiers in here, you've got your sphere or whatever, and if you want to add modifiers, basically you've got your modifier stack here, and you can do things like, let's see, what's an interesting one? Well, okay, subdivision surface isn't that interesting with this one. Let's do a cube. So if I want to add, say, a subdivision surface, right, and then I think there's a way to display that. I think if you go to edit mode, yeah, then you'll see it. So now I can mess with that as you would with a sub-D surface, and then you can kind of change the resolution of that. Another little note here, again, if you're just starting with Blender, these little things are basically, this is whether you're going to show it in edit mode, whether you're going to show it in the viewport, or just in a render, for example. But I can create, I can put a stack, I can add additional modifiers here. If I want to add a bevel, or I guess the array one does sort of this kind of MoGraphy stuff a little bit as well, too. But you've basically got your modifier stack here, and you can drag them, all that kind of stuff that you would expect to do in something like Max. I don't know how expensive it gets. You can actually collapse. I should probably try to turn those off. Hold on. Wait a second. Probably shouldn't do those when I'm live streaming. Hold on. How do I turn those things off? Yes, that's true. I haven't done a huge amount of that myself. So let's say here, if you wanted to, in this case, like, delete the history on these. Let's just toast this array one. So if I wanted to take this and I can collapse it, I believe it's in this little menu here. So you can just go apply, and now basically I've lost my history, so I've got this object. So then if I wanted to do a smooth, hard edge type thing, there's a couple of weird ways to do that in Blender. Basically, you can just right click on it and shade it smooth, which I guess will do all the edges. And then I believe you may have done more than this than I have. I think if you want to go and mark your edges here, you can right click. I'm still a little bit unsure of, like, what the difference between, like, I think seams are for UV boundaries and sharp is more for like a smoothing boundary. But to be honest, I don't use this that much. Let's just try that. So let's see if I now go and, let's see, shade it smooth. Yeah, see, it doesn't respect that. Mark seam is for UVs, yeah. So, but you would think that the sharp then would work for this, right? But the thing is, it has a bit of an override here. Yeah, it does this auto smooth thing. Okay, so if you turn the auto smooth on, then it is respecting that. Oddly enough, because you'd think the auto smooth would override something like that. But anyway, that's kind of the workflow that I've seen used in Blender for this kind of thing. Is that basically you turn the smooth on, and then you use the auto smooth, I guess, and then you mark your faces manually. That seems to be the way to do it. Again, I haven't done a huge amount of that, but that seems to work. So go in here and mark your hard edges, right click, mark sharp, and then yeah, that seems to work. So maybe that's an answer. But I think the key is that you have to turn this auto smooth thing on, or it just kind of ignores it. And again, not sure why. It's a little counterintuitive. I'll put this aside for your next question while I keep working. So basically what I've got here, I was sort of wanted to show a way how I'm kind of instancing this animation. So I've just got a very simple animation. Let's say I've got my first keyframe here. Maybe I'll toast the other keyframes. And then, so I've just got the one keyframe here, which is sort of going to there. And then what actually, no, I'm not going to toast the other keyframes. Let's bring them back. It just does a bunch of weird stuff here. But really what I want to do is sort of duplicate this and clone it and make an instance effectively. So what I'm going to do here is I select the hierarchy, and then I'm just hitting Control D to duplicate it. And there's probably a better way of doing this, but I hit Control D and then I hit Escape, and then it just basically leaves it where it is because it wants to try to move it around. So now what I have is another version of this, and what I'm going to do is take this parent node here, which I'm just calling an offset, and I'm just going to rotate it. I'm just going to move it basically so that it's in a different place, and just kind of tighten up these 90-degree angles, which I could probably set as a snap somewhere, but I'm lazy. And so now it's actually working, but because I've set it up before. No, actually, no, it's working because there is the animation was copied as well, right? So I've got basically a duplicate of it here. But here's the trick. If I go to this one here, or let's say I go to this one and I delete all these keyframes. Let's just see. Yeah, see, they're still on the other one, right? So they're not linked together. And really what I want to do is to be able to iterate on this thing, like to, make a bunch of them. So say take this thing and select the hierarchy and, duplicate it a few times, and then take each one of these and sort of... This is the tricky part. It's interesting doing this kind of animation is you find that it's a lot like solving a Rubik's Cube. So I did one of these for the Mural Fest it was something similar to this, where basically I can kind of look that up. I should have it kicking around as an example, but I don't. But if you've seen any of the Mural Fest stuff or the posters around town, you go and scan the QR code on them, then that's basically, it's a similar type of animation to this. And in doing that, most of the work was really in figuring out what the right kind of rotations were for each of these little things. So now I've got a few of them, and they've just got the one animation, or sorry, they've all got that whatever animation it is. But basically what I want to do is link them together, and this is where Blender does things a little bit weirdly. So I basically want to pick them all in order with the one I want to clone it to basically link them to as the last one. I hope I'm doing this right. We'll find out. And then you go to your object menu, and this is also where you do things like, let's say you wanted to link materials together or various things like that. You do this create links thing. Even if you just wanted to copy materials like from one object to another, this is basically the way you do it. And I don't think it's that intuitive, but once you've done it once or twice, it kind of makes sense. So in this case, what I want to link is animation data. So let's see if I do that, and now they're all basically the same. And now if I go and pick one of them, and I say at frame 40, I want it to rotate, say 90 degrees. Actually, I don't have any keyframes on rotation there. So I'll just set a keyframe here. Let's just see which rotation that is. Okay, it's this one. Let's just set a keyframe here, and then go to 40, and set it to say 0. I don't know why it's rotating on these channels. And here's another quirky Blender thing. Let's just see if this actually, it didn't actually set the keyframe. So I have to set it manually, or I need to turn on auto keyframing, which, to be honest, is a really weird thing, and I'm still not sure I've ever actually figured it out properly. I'm in the dope sheet right now. I should see, I want to look at the timeline. There we go. I think this is the auto keying button, but it doesn't always seem to work the way I expect it to. But let's just see. If I turn this on, and then I make a change here, you would expect that it set a keyframe. Okay, it actually did. Alright, so now, theoretically, what should happen is that I've got keyframes on all of them. Yeah, it did work, see? So now, bingo, they're all doing their thing. So now I can actually start to go in and start to kind of mess with this and do maybe a scale animation or whatever. And then see, now they're all going to do that. Except that, of course, I didn't set a keyframe on scale at 1 here. Let's do it again. Yeah. So there we go. And again, I can just clone this and whatever. So now I can do the same thing. I think I may need to also do the links for these, but let's just try it. So let's go to here, say, and let's add... Let's just do that one, and let's just see if they're all linked. No, they're not. So what I need to do is I need to also link a different type of data. So I can go make links, and I believe this is object data. There we go. Okay, so now I don't actually have a keyframe for that. I think I just set it. So let's set the value here for that corner. Oops, let's get around the right spot here. So I'll just set a keyframe to 1 there. Come on, get on 60. And then let's say go back to 40 and just set this down to 0. And see, my auto keyframing does work. So here we go, bingo, bingo. So now it's doing that. So I don't have them quite lined up right in the one that I had been working with, which actually, now that I've kind of shown how to do this part, actually no, I'll just keep going with this. But you can see that they're all lined up in weird ways. So what I had done was just made sure that my offsets were correct. And this is where I would say it's kind of like doing a Rubik's Cube, where you basically have to, all your rotations have to be kind of correct when you start out. And I probably broke it by rotating the wrong level of node here. Anyway, I am going to load the one that's in the oven. And then I'm just going to break the I'm going to break these links here, so I can actually no, I'll leave them and just kind of demonstrate, just kind of show how this works. So basically, here's my animation. You can see how these ones now line up nicely because I've just got them rotated the right way, so that I get this kind of interesting they sort of form this outer cube. And then here they're moving to the inner spot. I kind of like the way that this sort of forms another sort of kind of Hypercube Cross thing. And it's really just, you look at the individual ones and they're just basically like this, right? They're sort of sitting in like corners. And then this is just kind of transitioning between those two, like the inner and outer corner ones, as it's changing. And then sort of going to basically having both the corners out. And then just doing a cool little kind of rotation, scale, again sort of playing with this idea of the cube fitting together in different ways. And this is the one that kind of goes to the Hypercube one, which isn't really a Hypercube when you've got them all like this. It's almost more like, some kind of weird pattern. But that would be, to do that properly, I'd want the whole thing, like just basically one big one. And then again, just sort of messing with the animation on these, and bringing that. The next part is to bring it into Spark AR. And so Spark AR if you haven't worked with it, is basically this is the AR software that I've been using for the most part, and it's pretty cool. It works with, you can publish stuff directly to Facebook and Instagram with it. And so if you're going to do a filter, like a face filter, or a something that, you know, sits in the world like this little preview window here will show me, you know, I don't actually have, because again, I just reinstalled Windows recently, and I kind of lost a lot of the stuff I had, but I used to have some little preview videos here that were actually like outside things. But this is just sort of showing what this would look like placed in the world. And so you would just drop it on your lawn or your desktop or something, and then you'd be able to sort of, you know, see it overlaid on real stuff. But you can see what's going on here is that the blend shapes aren't working. And this is the thing that I was going to try to solve today. The animation itself is kind of working, but the way that Spark does blend shapes is a little weird. It's basically, you add a deformation to something, and what I need to do is kind of go back and just look at an individual cube and see why this isn't working. But if I go and say add a deformation, I can pick it from something that I've got loaded that is, you know, topologically equivalent, and it shouldn't look like that. So this is basically like, this should be that hyper blend shape that I've got in here, right? The one that makes it look like a hypercube, but it's doing this. So I don't know why. It's also got a bunch of extra ones in here, which are, I don't know what's going on there. So what I really need to do is just a very simple test of just basically one of these dudes, and sort of see what's going on. But actually, before I do that, I'm just going to talk about these here as well. So the other thing that Spark doesn't do is it doesn't export shape animation. So so basically none of that animation that I've done here in Blender, where the shape animation is actually changing it, is going to come across. You can see just the transform animation is working. Basically, it's just moving stuff around, and should probably do the scaling as well. Yeah, it's doing the scaling and just the basic transforms. But the blend shapes, even though they come in on objects, you can see here, they don't. The animation channels don't. So what you need to do is actually hook those up to something else. And so what I've done here is, to sort of prepare for that, is I've created these little cubes here, which are just going to animate between 0 and 1. And then they become drivers. So you can see here, as I move them, they become drivers for these blend shapes here. As I move this, it's basically just driving the blend shape. And then by doing that in Spark, I can get that transform animation will come through. And then I can go into the patch editor here and basically hook it up so that it drives the weight of drives basically these channels here based on, you know, the up and down translation. That's working fine. What's not working is this kind of, I don't know why the blend shape itself isn't working, and that's something that I need to debug. But I thought what I'd just demonstrate very quickly here is how I went about setting up this driver, which is actually, it's funny when you look for these things, because you go and, I'm sure you've done this, is, you know, you go through Google and YouTube videos and everything, and you find like something that was correct for, like, you know, 4 versions ago of whatever the software is, and you're trying to figure it out. I was just doing that this morning with just trying to get this this live streaming working. I was looking at different versions of this OBS software, and I was like, oh, nothing was working. Finally figured it out. Anyway, so I'm just going to do this driver thing, and then I think I might wrap up. But basically, so if I want these blend shapes to be controlled by these little cubes, you have to set up what's called a driver, and this is similar to in Maya, where you do like use the connection editor, have driven keys, that sort of thing. I believe there is a way like with a graph editor to actually edit the curve as well, but I haven't gotten that far with it. But basically, let me just break this one here. I'll just delete these drivers. And so now I've basically got just no animation on my blend shapes. So I can just turn them all down, and again, they're all still linked together, which is cool. But now what I want to do is link these to sort of drive those things. So, and I should probably have named them a little better. I called this corner, but I called the thing inner. Leave this one, let's just rename it to inner and outer. So, I probably should have been recording this. I don't think I was. Okay, so what I want to do is connect these together. So the way you do that is you go to the channel that you want to use as a driver. It's actually really easy. I think it used to be more complex. If you look at the videos, they show a wackier way of doing this. But in here, I can just go to that channel, which is, say, the Z. Yeah, no worries. Talk to you later. And then you go. Oh god damn it! It's not working now. Why do I not see driver? What am I doing wrong? Oh, do I not have it selected? It's the Z channel. I want to. Oh, crap. I don't know what I'm doing wrong now. Oh, maybe I have to do it on here? No, that's not it. Wow. Okay. I've lost it. I don't know why it's not working. But I think I've lost my one viewer anyway, so it doesn't matter. I know I did this before. I wonder if it's because it's animated. Yeah, oh yeah, that's interesting. Oh yeah, I think it's because it's animated. Because there's a keyframe on it. Well, that totally sucks. See, if I hover over this one, I get this add driver. I also get an open drivers editor. No. But that doesn't make any sense. So I can't add it as a driver if it is animated. Wow, that's... Copy as new driver. Oh, maybe that's it. Copy as new driver. Let's try that. And then go back to this. And which one was it? Was it inner? I hope so. And then go on the value and say paste driver. Okay, maybe that works then. Okay, good. That's it. Yeah, that's weird. So I guess it was a little bit different if there's animation on it. Okay, so that was my inner one. And then I can do the same thing for the outer one. I want to go here, copy as new driver, and then go back to my thingy, and this is outer. I want to paste it. No, sorry, it's this value. Paste driver, and then this one here. Copy this new driver. I'm learning stuff here. And then my shape keys, that's the hyper one, I hope. And paste driver. Okay, so now because there is animation on that, yeah, it's doing its thing. There we go. It's all working. Everything is hunky-dunky. Okay, and that, I think I'm gonna, with that amazing bit of craziness, I'm going to close this live stream. I think it was recorded. I don't know. I'll figure it out later. Anyway, thanks for watching it whenever you are watching it, and we will do more of these. Now, how do I stop it?